Hi everyone, welcome back to another session by K21 Academy. And today our expert trainer will be discussing about AWS Security Pillar that are the best practices for securing your cloud applications. So make sure you're watching the video till the end.
The first pillar is the pillar of security, because nowadays information which is generated out of the data which is collected from the various source is the most expensive thing a company owns. And the company is always concerned about protecting this information and the systems which are used for distributing this information. So these information and the information systems are required to be protected in a well way so that they deliver to the business needs. For this, the ability of to protect the information system and the asset while delivering the business value, you have to think about the below strategies. The first is who is doing what. That means you should deploy a proper identity and access management solution. You should deploy proper detective control tools. That means if something happens in your environment, that activity should be traceable. You should be able to trace what and who has done. So you should be basically making use of Cloud Trail service of AWS. You should be making use of AWS config. You should be making use of AWS X-ray services for AWS resource monitoring, for configuration monitoring, for application usage monitoring. You have got these tools. So you should always have detective tools deployed where all the logs are being properly monitored and maintained. So now we are going to understand about, so this is your detective control. The next is infrastructure protection tools. You should deploy them in a proper way. So when I talk about the infrastructure protection, it means network firewall. It means your web application firewall. It means your proper deployment of security groups and network access control list. It means deployment of AWS Inspector service, guard duty service. It talks about the data protection. So when it talks about the data protection, that means it is talking about encryption and incident response. So the security at every level. Security at which all levels? The security at user level, the security at infrastructure level, the security at data level. If incident occurs, you should be able to do the forensics. And in case of any incident, what response should be taken so as to immediately safeguard your perimeters or your environment or your data from the attack. So this is the pillar. So you should be now understanding about the risk assessment. What can impose risk to your infrastructure and data, and how you can mitigate those risks is the main agenda of this particular pillar. In security, Amazon has given you so many tools. So you know that identity and access management, AWS session token service, AWS multi-factor authentication, AWS organization. These are the services which falls under the category of identity and access management. For detective controls, as I said, AWS config, AWS Cloud Trail, CloudWatch, and another service recently launched is X-ray. AWS X-ray service. For infrastructure protection, you can protect your infrastructure by inspector, WAF, shield. You can create an isolated environment by using VPC. You can do a layer of caching so as to protect the origin of your data to from getting directly accessed. So you can use CloudFront. So in this way, you are protecting the infrastructure. For data protection, you can use KMS, Key Management Service, which can be deployed on Elastic Load Balancer, EBS, S3, and RDS. So in data protection, we can talk about the protection of the data at rest and the protection of the data in transit. And KMS is the service which is used for protecting your data at rest, whereas SSL and TLS is the service which is used to protect your data in transit. Amazon gives you both. And this incident response, the CloudWatch event or Event Bridge in specific, are the incident response tools which are used by us. So there are so many services which are given by Amazon to provide security to you. So when we talk about the security should be deployed everywhere. We cannot say that because I have locked the Almirah, I can keep my stuff open in it. People used to install lockers inside the Almirah. And moreover, you cannot say that because I have installed a lock at my door, everything can be left open in my house. We deploy lock. In fact, if I go a little bit out, if I am living in a society, we deploy security guards at the entrance. We deploy security guard at the reception. We deploy security at our door by giving CCTV camera. We deploy security at the door by installing locks on our door. When coming inside, we deploy locks on our Almirah. Inside the Almirah, we create lockers and we deploy locks over there also. So 7 layers of protection I am doing when I am living in the house. Okay, so this is how you need to also deploy security for your infrastructure at every level. Why do we install cameras? Because we need to keep a log who is accessing my resources, who is entering into my house, who is leaving my house. That is the reason I deploy the cameras. Similarly, when you are securing your infrastructure, you should also deploy such kind of solution which could keep a track who is using what. So CloudTrail is the service, Log Group is the service. You should deploy security at the perimeter. You should isolate your infrastructure. Everybody should not be able to have access to everything. You should deploy security of data in transit and the security of data at rest. Enforce access control granularity with least privilege. That means you should create users and each user should be given only the amount of permission which are mandatorily required by the user for functioning, not more than that. Consider multi-factor deployment, try to use managed services, and always automate the security policies. That means password expiry, it should be automated. Every 3 months the password should get expired. The user should not be allowed to repeat the password. The last 3 passwords cannot be reused. All these kinds of things you should be doing. So when I say security at each layer, that means at perimeter, you should basically follow a policy very commonly known as, if you have heard about, ZTP. Zero Trust Policy. Wives always have this policy on their husbands, zero trust policy, right? So this term has been derivated from there itself. Women are very smart, na? So the security team said that we should also deploy this thing because like data, the husbands are also very vulnerable. So many must be able to, correlate with this thing. So you should consider it in such a way only that you should have a zero trust policy for your data. In fact, the internal resources of your organization should be properly screened before they get an access to the data which has been kept by your organization. So that means you should be giving security at all layers. You should have firewalls at the edge. You should have encryption when your data is at rest. You should have DOS protection with AWS Shield. You should have application protection with web application firewall. Everything should be there deployed properly. Every virtual machine, every load balancer, every network should be protected properly. And protection is one thing, but making this protection traceable, that means maintaining the logs, is another thing. So you should be taking care of that also. Although you have protected your infrastructure in a very right way, following all the principles of security, but again, those all access which are being done on the infrastructure should be properly logged. So that is also very much necessary because your resources should be traceable. Forensics is always important. So that is very much important for an organization. And moreover, on top of it, there should be certain automated responses which should be there in response to the security event. Like for an instance, I will tell you, suppose say there is an login attempt being made on your virtual machine from a certain public IP address, and you are noticing that the login attempt is getting failed. So you can create an automated policy in your infrastructure where if the login attempt is failed thrice, 3 times, then the account should be disabled. Like this happens in your banking environments, right? Whenever you try to log in into the account and you are trying to log in and you enter the wrong password 3 times, your account gets disabled and you need to reset your password. So this actually protects your account against the dictionary attack. On top of it, what you can do is, if you want to protect a website, like suppose say from a particular public IP address, there is an attempt being made on the website which is getting very much related to an attack. So that public IP can be blocked to get access to the website. That particular public IP can get blocked. So like this kind of automated responses to the security events should be configured in your application, on your infrastructure. It should be there, right? So all these things you have to keep in mind when you are deploying the security. Making it traceable, automated response, focusing on securing your system at every level, and then automate the security best practices like password expiry and all which I discussed. So these are the principles of security. And when you are required to deploy these principles, you have got IAM, Identity and Access Management. We have learned in depth about these tools. You can secure your resources by creating users, by deploying appropriate policy controls on it, integrating your infrastructure with third-party identity providers like LDAP, Single Sign-On, Active Directory, that is AD. You can have certificate-based authentication. 802.1x is the security standard in LAN. Similarly, the certificate authentication is X.9. That is all is possible. So you can use these resources, the federated resources for single sign-on, AD. All these can be used for protecting your infrastructure. For protecting your infrastructure, you also have got these firewalls, security groups, and NACS. In case of Amazon, whenever you have got an EC2 instance, if you apply Linux or you use Windows, there is always a operating system firewall that can be enabled. Like for Linux, we can enable SE Linux. For Windows, we have got an OS firewall always active for Windows server. The data which is attached to the server can be encrypted by using the keys. After this security, you have got another layer of security called security group. So every EC2 instance has got an ENI, Elastic Network Interface, which is in turn associated with a security group. So whatever is the incoming traffic, it is first filtered by NACL, which is basically a subnet level security. All the machines inside a subnet will be protected by using this security, then the security group, and then the OS firewall, and then the encrypted file system. So these are the various layers of security which Amazon has got. So via this we can do the infrastructure protection. How does this multi-layer architecture gives us protection? So you know that whenever you are deploying Elastic Load Balancer, there is a security group associated if you are using an application load balancer. So when the user enters, his traffic is filtered by the security group associated with this load balancer. If the user is allowed, then the traffic is filtered by the security group associated with these front-end servers. In fact, if these front-end servers are member of a subnet, then even before the security group, there will be a NACL which will be taking care of the security, that when the user enters after the security group of the load balancer, it will be the NACL of the subnet and then the security group of your EC2 instance. So if a user is allowed on this LG and is not allowed on the security group of this application server and this application server, and the user, instead of trying to access the web servers, and via the web servers he is accessing these servers, instead of following this predicted, or you can say this allowed way, if your user tries to access the servers directly, the application subnet is being tried to use, or the user is trying to reach to the database subnet, his access will be denied, because in the security group and the NACL, the traffic which is originated from this subnet is only allowed to get inside the application server and the DB server. It is not allowed to come from anywhere else. So thus it adds a layer of security by deploying a multi-layer architecture. Your external user is confined to the web server. He cannot use the application server or the database servers as per the rule. We have discussed about encryption, hardware security modules in depth when we were studying about the KMS. HSM means hardware security module. That means if you are importing the key from your own certificate authority, then you can put them inside the hardware security modules, which at the time we have discussed that they are FIPS 140 level 2 certified. So these HSMs are basically dedicated hosts on which a storage is created for your keys. Thus it is a little bit expensive, but security wise it is highly secure place to keep the keys, and it has been verified and certified by a third party called FIPS.
So guys, this was our expert from Team K21 Academy, and if in case you missed upon any concept or if you want to dive deeper into the concepts, then we have something really special for you. We have our free class on Amazon AWS Solution Architect Certification for Beginners. Under this free class, you'll be learning about why and who should learn AWS, cloud services, deployment models, and AWS services as well. And the most important part is you'll be getting hands-on labs, job opportunities, along with Docker and Kubernetes in AWS, and amazing stuff. So if you want to register for this free class, all you have to do is just log on to your browser and type k21academy.com/AWS-SA02, and after that you'll be seeing this kind of interface. You just have to click on book your free seat now, select your event date, add your name, your email address, your phone number, and click on yes, save my seat. And after that you'll be seeing this kind of page. You just have to save this link on the extreme right, add it to your calendars, and I'll see you in the free class. Till then, keep learning.